I don't have a PowerPoint with a bunch of pictures tonight. I've done PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint with audio and video and all kinds of stuff. But tonight, all I'm going to do is talk to you. If at any time you want to ask a question, just put your hand up and we'll stop and answer it right then. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey in this, how I came to be in this, and some of the things that have happened along the way for me as I've been on this journey. It's been amazing. I've met some awesome people, and then I've met some people that aren't quite so awesome. But anyway, I mean, you know, I'm an equal opportunity prayer. I pray for everybody, so it don't matter, you know, if they're awesome or not awesome. This is indigo. If any of you know anything about me, you probably know about indigo. Now, this on this side is the photo I took. Right there. The other is a portrait that was done of indigo. I have interacted with Indigo for many, many, many years from the time he was little. He's like 20 now. He's quite something else. When I first came onto Facebook many years ago, and I had this photo, and somebody had seen it, and they said, well, will you post that photo? Well, I did post it, and boy, did that start a storm. And so I took it down. I was like, no, I don't want to, I don't want to put up with all this stuff. But then I put it back up. And then what started happening was indigo started showing up in all these different research groups, and somebody there said that was their photo that they had taken on such and such a time. Well, so many people had already seen that indigo was mine, and he's not mine. He is just, he's a kid to me. You know, he's like a neighborhood kid who comes into your life and it becomes a part of your life. And I'm going to talk about some things Indigo has done. And he has a younger brother named Blue. He has a younger sister I call Baby Girl. So they are quite something else, and they are the biggest pranksters in the world. And I'm an easy mark, so they have a lot of fun with that. When I first got into this, people were asking me to come and speak at conferences. I didn't know that there was such a thing as a Bigfoot research world. I've known about them since I was 6. At the age of 6, I was at my grandmother's, sitting on the ground, playing in the dirt with sticks, building little things with sticks, and I heard somebody walk up. And I looked up expecting to see my grandmother, but I didn't. I saw a young male Bigfoot. So I looked at him for a little while, and he looked at me for a little while, and then he turned around and walked off. I jumped up and ran in, told my granny what I'd seen. When I asked her, I said, what was that? And she said to me, what do you think it was? She didn't tell me what it was right then. She wanted me to think about what I saw. And she didn't want to put anything into my head until I had a chance to think about it. It was interesting. So my first big foray into the Bigfoot world of conferences, I was going to a conference in Washington. And there was a group of people who were very upset with how I talked about the Bigfoot. I didn't have any idea that the things were going to happen that happened. When I came into it, I just told people what I experienced. I didn't go under the guise of science or trying to prove anything or anything else. I just started sharing my experiences. And a lot of people didn't like that for some reason. I was outside the box. And that bothered a lot of people. So there was this group of people that labeled me, and actually Tom Cantrell too, as kooks. We were called kooks. Well, we get to the conference, and I'm walking downstairs to eat breakfast with a girlfriend. Do anybody know who Tom Powell is? He is an author in this, and I know Tom. And we had walked up, and Tom said, "Hey, girls, you sit and eat with us." And so we sat down, and Guy Edwards was with him. And we were talking, and Tom said, "Well, Arla, how have you been?" And it just popped out. I said, "Well, you know, Tom, I'm kind of upset right now." And he said, "Well, what's wrong?" I said, "Well, you know what? Somebody called me a kook." And he looked at me, and I said, "Tom, I'm not a kook. I'm a kookette." And Tom told me, he said, "Don't you ever fail to tell that story. That's who you are. You're a kookette." And a lot of people say, "Oh, don't call yourself that. That's not a good term." Well, that's my term. I'm a female kook. And I'm perfectly happy with being a female kook. So all I can do is share my experiences. I can tell you, like I said on the Bill's DVD, I've never had a bad experience in my whole life. I've never had. I have backpacked and hiked across the United States. I've been in New York, Pennsylvania, all across that area. I've been south where they say they're really, really bad. I've never had that type of a thing happen to me. I've been in California. I've camped 30 miles out into the forest from a town, which was nothing more than a little bitty town and a ranger station. We were primitive camping in the area of Bluff Creek. I never had anything bad happen there. I've been in the Golden Ears in British Columbia. I've never had anything bad happen there. And the only thing that I can tell you is I do have the blessings of the teachings my grandmother gave me, and all the years that she taught me about them and my interaction with them. Fear never once came up. I was never taught to fear them. I was taught to be respectful. These are our neighbors. They live out there like our other neighbors do. Sometimes you talk to your neighbors, and sometimes you don't talk to your neighbors. Sometimes you interact with them, and sometimes you don't interact with them. But you treat them with respect. I think probably one of the main things that causes a person to feel like they've had a bad encounter is just pure misunderstanding. Misunderstanding their nature. And I'm going to tell you a little story that happened, and it shows that two people have the same encounter but tell it totally different. I was in the Kiamish Mountains, which is where I live, but I was camped out with some people. And as I often do, I get up from the fire at night and walk off into the woods or walk down the road or whatever. Well, that particular night, I was sitting there, and it was probably about midnight, and I thought, I'm going to get up and walk down the road. So I just got up and started to walk down the road, and one of the young men said, Miss Arla, can I go with you? And I said, sure, come on, go with me. Now, I had talked to him during the daytime, and he wasn't sure what they were, and he was afraid. of what they were. And so we had talked a lot about that. So he already had that fear in not understanding. So we take off down the road and we hear very heavy bipedal walking coming up from the trees and the cedars and the brush. And it's coming up behind us, and it gets up even with us. And there are tall cedars and pines and everything there, and it's hard to see in that. Well, that bipedal walking stopped just inside that tree line, not very far from us. Well, this young man reaches over and he grabs my arm. And he said, "Are you afraid?" And I said, "No." I said, "Are you afraid?" And he grabbed me with his other hand, and he's literally hanging on to my body. Now, I'm between him and this big hairy guy that's behind this brush and stuff. And he's literally scared to death. He says, "I don't know what he's doing to me." And I tried to talk to him and tell him it's okay. Nothing's going to happen. But he was so scared I couldn't even talk with him to get him to calm down. So I just told him, "Let's go back. We'll go back to the fire and sit." So 2 people make a report. One person says, "I get up, walk away from the fire, take off down the road. I hear heavy bipedal walking. He walks up. I hear him walking up. He's right there inside the tree line." That's my report. His report is, "Oh my God, we were walking down the road and this thing started coming at us and I don't know what he was doing to me." Because he was afraid. He didn't understand. He already had that fear in him because he didn't know. So that fear jumped out in an encounter that was totally not threatening. But he didn't understand that. And I do believe that a lot of those encounters are like that. You don't understand. Now, if you would take me and put me down in some inner city or something, I'd be freaked smooth out. I can guarantee you that, because I don't understand how all of that works there. I live in the woods, and that's where I've been most of my life. And there might be things said to me that I would take totally in a way that they weren't meant. So it's understanding the nature of who you're dealing with, regardless of what it is. One of the things that the hairy kids have done is pranked me. They like to take things from me and hide them. I was in Honubby camping down in the Comishes, and anybody who knows me knows I have a flip-flop problem. I love flip-flops, and I'm usually barefooted or in flip-flops. Now, I couldn't be barefooted because I'm healing from a wreck. One foot was broke 6 places, and a lot of other damage was done and some other stuff. So that's as close as I could get to barefooted. So, and they're really comfortable and help my foot a lot. So anyway, I was camping. I had a pretty nice tent, and I took Watto with me, my bull mastiff. And I got there and was going to get my tent set up, so I kicked my flip-flops off and took them and set them over away from where I was going to set the tent. So I put the tent up, got it all ready, and I decided I'm going to go walking with Watto for a while before it gets too late. So Watto and I take off, and we're hiking, go down around a little river, and we're just spending time enjoying being there. And we get back to the tent, and I'm thinking, I need to get those flip-flops and put them in. Something will get them and carry them off, and like a varmint or whatever or a hairy kid. And so I went to get them. Well, when I got there, there was only one. And I'm like, what the heck? So I started looking all around. Nope. Only one flip-flop. And I'm like, okay, whoever took my flip-flop, you better bring it back. But it didn't appear. So anyway, I took my one flip-flop and put it in the tent. Well, I was there about 3 days, I guess, and I had my cot up, and I was comfortable. I went to be comfortable. And the day that I left, I started pulling everything out of my tent and packing it up, and the last thing I usually always took out was my cot. And I have a really nice cot. It's like, I don't know how long it is, but it's 36 inches wide, and it's comfortable. But it's big. It takes up a big area. So I'm pulling my cot up, and I feel something underneath it. And I'm like, what's that? And so I'm feeling around, and I'm going, huh. So I go outside, around the outside, raise up the tent. My flip-flop is pushed under that tent where my cot was. I was there 3 days. There's no way I would have stepped on that flip-flop with it being put where it was. So I was just like, okay, guys, you got me this time. They've got me so many times through the year. They delight in that. And they love to prank anybody. Tell me a bunch of kids who wouldn't like to pull something on somebody. I know a bunch of adults who like to pull stuff on people. And that's very much who they've been in my life. I was going to go camp one night. I have a little old tent that's, you know, I called it my one woman and a dog tent because all that I could get in there was me and Watto. And I could set it up like in 10 minutes and be ready to sleep. It was the one I always used when I was just going out in the woods for a night. So I get it, and I take it out, and I get to where I'm going to camp, and I start putting it up, and I got the little things that are inside the poles were broken. So what I would do when I'd take it down is I would count my poles that would go through that sleeve, and I would put a little bungee around them so that I knew when I grabbed that bundle that I had enough to put together to go through that sleeve. So I put the first one through, and then I grabbed the other one, and I had gone around the back then to secure the one that I had put in. And so I thought I heard something. I went back around, I got my bundle, I put it together, pushed it through there, and my tent was crooked. And I was like, what's going on here? Something's not right. And I was like, I'm a pole short. Now, how did that happen? I always count these and put them in bundles and bungee them. Well, I thought, I'll hike back in and get another pole. I keep tent parts because you never know when you're going to need a tent part for something. So I go back, I get another piece. It doesn't fit very good. It's too long, so I'm trying to push it back up in there. I duct tape it, and finally I get it put to where it's okay. I can stay in it. And so I'm through. I get everything done. And I decide, well, I'm going to sit here on the ridge and look off over to the other ridge. And there's been many times I've been able to sit on the ridge on my side, and I could see them on the other ridge. And there's somebody else here who will have a picture of that tomorrow that's going to speak, that they do go over there on that other ridge. So I'm sitting there, just kind of looking at the trees and everything, and I look at this tree, and I'm like, there's something up in that tree. What is that? And I walk over there and look. It's a piece of tent pole. somebody took a piece of tent pole when I was behind the tent and at whatever time put it up in that tree. Now, I didn't sling any poles while I was putting the tent up, and I don't think a squirrel grabbed it and ran up the tree. So once again, I'm pranked. And yes, they're around. I know they're around. I'm not watching them. I'm not bothering them. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to camp tonight. I'm going to listen to the whippoorwills and everything else that's out here. And if I hear them and they come up, then that's good too. I'm going to love that. So these are what I know. Now, I was talking with a while ago about the biggest one I've ever seen, and that was down in the Kaimushi Mountains. I was walking off down into the meadow. I'd taken my drum and was going to go off down into the meadow to drum. And I heard something, and I looked off to my right, and inside the tree line was a very large one skirting me. I don't know, those of you who go out and do anything, if you've ever had them skirt you parallel where you're walking or not, or even get behind you where you hear that walking and you go, wait a minute. Well, this one, I could see every now and then he would walk through an area where the canopy wasn't so thick, and I would get a glimpse. And so I stopped at that point, and I was just like, I know you're there. And I spoke to him like I always do in those sage, wise words that are all that special language that everybody needs to use to talk to him, which is in my language. And I said, hi, guy. I talk to them like I'm going to talk to anybody. I don't get into, I've got to use these words. Now, I can speak a little Cherokee, and I can speak a little Choctaw. But they understand what I'm saying. They know what I'm saying. And if I heard Alex this morning talking about them using a language that he knows, they do that too. So for me, I'm not afraid. I didn't have a fear of him. He hadn't done anything. He was just walking. So I stopped. I spoke to him. I watched him. And in the clearing, there was a big clearing in the canopy, and there was a huge limb that came out. And when he walked through that area, I saw him, and his head barely come under that limb. And I just watched him go. At that point, I had decided I'd just go back to the cabin now and tell the guys what I'd seen. Well, I turned around and was walking back to the cabin. One of the guys was coming down to get me. You got to get up here. You got to get up here. You're not going to believe this. And I said, what? And he said, this friend of ours was upstairs in the cabin, and he looked off down there towards the meadow, and he saw this huge Bigfoot walking down there. Now, the cabin was pretty close to where I was. I wasn't very far from it. And he said, there's a clearing, and he went under a big limb. And I said, yes, he did. I saw him. So we took the tape measure down there to measure how tall he was. It's sometimes hard to estimate how high something is or how tall something is. So we took the tape measure down there, and it was 14 feet. So yeah, he's pretty big. A lot of people tell you they're bigger. I've never seen bigger. That don't mean there's not bigger. The biggest footprint I've ever personally seen is 21 and a half inches. And that's a big Bigfoot. So I've never seen these man-eating whatever that are out there in the woods. What I have seen is something that I've understood and respected since I was a little girl. And that's what I hope to do. But I also tell people, You know, if you're in the woods and you feel like they're there and you're feeling kind of threatened, stop, talk to them. Tell them who you are, what you're doing there. Whether you see them or not, if you get that feeling that a lot of people talk about, talk to them. Tell them who you are, what you're doing in the woods. Sometimes that's enough to get you through that feeling that you're afraid that something's going to happen. And sometimes they will back off. If you can't get through that, leave. That's pretty simple. Just leave. Don't push. I talk to a lot of people, and I have through the years, especially hunters, who have horror stories. And I had one guy that became a good friend, and he hunted a lot and was in his deer stand a lot. And he went to his deer stand one day, and he said, I'd heard them around there, a lot of stick snapping, a lot of stuff going on, so I knew they were there. Well, I just crawled up in my deer stand, and he said it wasn't long till there was a great big tree pushed over just right close. And he said it made the most awful noise, and he said scared me half to death. And they kept on. They kept making noises. They started whooping and making other things. It freaked him out. So he said, I got down and left. And I said, well, you know what? It worked. What would you have done if you were down there hunting and somebody come in and messed you up? I've known a lot of men that would be pretty upset. I took a chainsaw one time out to a tree because I had a hunter on my land in a tree hunting. You know, I'm a woman. What's going to happen if I go out there and confront a man with a gun and say, you know, you better get out of this tree and get off of my land. You don't have any business being here. So I just got my chainsaw, took a few steps towards that way. He could see me. He was close to the house. I revved that chainsaw up. He crawled down and left. Now, he was really upset with me. But he came into my space. And that's something we forget. This is their space outside, and they're happy to share it with us. Just be respectful. Be respectful of the area where you're at. And like I said, if you feel like you shouldn't be there, it's pretty simple. Leave. Don't push yourself. Just let it be as it is. Now, there's a lot of talk, and there's been talk tonight about telepathy. Telepathy is an actual thing, and a lot of us use it. And a lot of people use it that get connected to each other. Like a husband and a wife, or two really good friends, a couple, whatever. You get connected to somebody, and it's so much easier to use that telepathy, and half the time you don't even realize you're doing it. You're in the car going down, and your partner says, did you hear about that happened? And the other one said, I was just thinking about that. Has that ever happened to any of you where somebody said something and you were thinking about it? Or you think about somebody and they call, or you get an email, or you get a message, or whatever. What you've done is put that thought out into the universe, and somebody's going to pick it up. And people who are connected pick it up much easier and do it a lot, and then don't even think about it. Now, there's a man in this building right now that had some mind speak one night, and it was pretty straightforward, and I'm not going to go into that mind speak in case he's going to talk about it. But anyway, he kind of got it up close and personal, and yeah, it does exist. It does happen. But I'll tell you about a time I had with some mindspeak. There is or was a male that was there near me, and when he would come through the woods, he was like a bulldozer. He didn't care if he was quiet or who heard him or anything else. And he was a pretty good-sized boy. And I just kept hearing him, and he was all around. And so I decided one day, I was sitting outside in July, and I was just sitting there listening to everything, and I heard him, and here he come. I thought, I'm just going to ask him what's his name. And so I just said, what's your name? And in my head, I heard Rujasna. I said, Rujasna, and he said it again, Rujasna. And I thought, I better remember that. So I took my phone and recorded on my phone in July, he said his name was Rujasna. Well, I just left it at that. In November of that year, I did a lot of audio. I have got whole Sony recorders that are full that I've never even listened to. I just fill them up and put them away and get another one. But this particular night in July, I'd set it out right outside my house, right outside my bedroom window, actually. And I'd audioed all night. Well, the next morning, I got up, I went out, got my recorder, come back in. I got my cup of coffee, got in my recliner, kicked back, and I'm listening to audio. Well, about 30 minutes into it, I hear this voice say, Rujasna, on the recording. I come up out of the chair and I went, oh, I know that name, Rujasna. And I got chills, and I was like, oh my gosh. So as I'm listening to it, there are other things being said. I knew what was being said, but I wanted help listening to this audio. So I talked with Peck, who's got the audio back there that's really awesome if you get a chance to go back and listen to some of the stuff he's got. And I said, I want you to take this and work with me, and let's figure out exactly what's being said. So that takes a lot of stuff, slowing, doing all kinds of things. Well, what was said was, Rujasna. And then you hear other things like that you normally hear when you're recording and you're out there. If you've ever recorded, you hear stick snaps and knocks and all kinds of stuff. And then I hear approach slowly. And now it's not spoken exactly like we do. Approach slowly is what he said. And I'm like, And then in just a little bit, I hear some more stuff, and then I hear, all right. And I'm like, okay. And then in a little bit longer, I hear, we're going. And so I go back and I think about this. All right, I hear Rujasna's name being called. Rujasna. I know that name. I heard that name. It's on my phone. And then we have someone saying, approach slowly. Now, what did I tell you about Rujasna? He doesn't never go slow anywhere. He comes through like a bulldozer. Now, I don't know what they were doing outside. They could have been doing something else. I have had turnips, and I always have a big garden, or did always have a big garden. I had turnips still in the ground. I had all kinds of things. And I had told them many times, we have a deal, 50-50. I'll plant it. You can have 50% for your family, but you better leave me 50% because I got to feed family too. So I've got mindspeak months before of a name that would be almost impossible to duplicate. And not a lot of people knew about that audio. So that was an affirmation for me. Did I need it? No. I knew his name was Rajusna. He told me his name was Rajusna. But I thought it was kind of cool that I was able to audio him being called out. Now, I just mentioned 50-50. That came about one year because of the watermelon patch. And I had quite a big watermelon patch. And I had planted cob gems and black diamonds. I don't know if you guys know what cob gems and black diamonds are, but they're really, really big watermelons. So not just anybody's going to walk in and carry off watermelons. Well, I watch my garden. I'm in it every morning, first thing. And I'm out there watching those watermelons. And one of my favorite things is the first watermelon that gets ripe. I break it open outside early of a morning after it's been through the night, and I eat it right there. Well, something was happening. I was having watermelons that were about ready to pick, and they were disappearing. Whole watermelons, not pieces. Like, a coyote will go in and bite into something, and a deer will take his hoof and put into something. But there's evidence that they've been in there. There was no watermelon. So I'm like, what the heck? So a couple of mornings later, maybe I'm going out. I got a watermelon that I'm just waiting to get. It's not there. That watermelon's gone. So I'm like, what's going on? It just didn't dawn on me that they were coming in and getting watermelons. So a few mornings later, I've got one. It's ready. I know it's going to be ready. I am so excited to go out there, and it's not there. So I start looking. I start pulling back vines, and I'm looking. I'm going to find who's getting these watermelons. Underneath, where there were a lot of leaves, was a bare footprint. A big bare footprint. So somebody was coming in and getting my watermelons. So I can tell you for sure they seemed to like watermelon. So I just said out loud, okay, guys, this is how it is. You can have half of what I grow. I'll grow extra so that you can come in and take half for your family of the things that you want. But you've got to leave me half too. I got a family to feed too. So from that point on, they have never taken more than half. I had blackberry patch I'd planted. I knew in peak season how much I would pick. I picked every other day. I knew exactly by looking at the plants how much I was going to get. I was into main bearing time. So at that point, I was getting, I think it was over, like 1.5 gallons, something like that. And I went out and was picking, and I was close to it, and I heard the hairy kids off in there, and I just said, if you guys want some, you can come in and get them. And I just left it at that. Well, I went on in with my blackberries, and then in a couple of days, I go back out to pick again. Well, I'm picking, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm sure not getting as many blackberries as I thought I would. So I'm coming on around, I come up, and I'm picking, and I go down to kind of pick under, and there's a footprint. So they took me at the word, but they only took half. They left me half. I put things out for them sometimes. I use cornmeal in ceremony and things that I do. And I had just fresh ground cornmeal from corn that I'd grown, and I wanted to share some. So I put it in a Ziploc bag. And I filled that quart up. I took it out to where they would come up, and I took a vine and I tied it to a low limb. And I just told them, here you go, guys, I just want to share this with you, and turned around and went back to the house. When I went back down there, I think the next day, I looked and I was like, the bag's there. And I went over and I looked at it, and it was tied, but not how I tied it on there. And half of the cornmeal was gone. Half of it was left. They honored that again, that 50-50. This last one I'm going to tell you about with 50-50 helped one of my grandsons. I have a grandson who is autistic. He is very matter-of-fact, and this is how it is. And he's always said if I'd ask him a question about a Bigfoot, he'd say, or I'd say, why don't they do that? And he'd say, because they don't want to. Just very matter-of-fact, and that's pretty much how it is. Well, we had got him a Happy Meal, and it had the apples in it. So we put the apples out. He wanted to put the apples out. He didn't want to eat them. So we put the apples out in an area right up close to the house where they come. And I said, we'll just tell them, okay, guys, these are for you. And then we just left them. The next day when I went out, there was a little X laying beside the McDonald's apples thing. Half the apples were left. Now, if you know how a McDonald's bag of apples is, you have to have fingers to open it. There were fingers that opened this. It wasn't ripped up with teeth marks and bite marks and stuff. It was opened and closed. Am I afraid to go anywhere on this earth right now where they are? Would I be afraid to walk into the woods? No, I wouldn't. And I've told people for years when I came into this that if you got a problem, and I've worked with a lot of people who felt like they had aggression problems, and we worked through them. But I told them, if you are so afraid, and do you want me to come? I'll come, and I'll stand between you and them, and we'll talk about this. I don't care what the aggression problems are. I have that much faith that I'm not going to be harmed by them. I trust them. I'm not telling you to trust them. I'm telling you I trust them, no matter where they are, what's said about them. I've been in the deep south. Like I said, I've been pretty much everywhere, even where they're supposed to be all of them really bad. Are there rogues and all these bad ones out there and everything? I've never experienced it. I've never seen it. So I can't tell you, oh my gosh, yes there is. My opinion is those things happen because of where the person is, not because of them. It's like we heard, they do their darndest for the most part to stay out of our way. I didn't ask for them to do what they've done with me through the years. I didn't ask at all. They chose that. I don't ever ask them anything. Come show yourself to so-and-so. Even when Stuart had his encounter, I didn't ask them to do that. I don't ask them. They're a people, they're my neighbors, and anyway, what gives me the right to tell them or anybody else I want you to come and perform for this person, or I want you to come in and show yourself to this person. Now, saying that, there's a lot of people that I wish they could have an encounter, but that's not my place. That's not my place at all to do that. Do they disappear right in front of you? Yeah, from my experience, they do. Why did they do that? Because they want to. They have a reason to do it. They have a reason behind everything they do. And most of the time when you're getting rocks thrown at you or sticks or whatever, it's because they're out there playing. When I was a kid, I used to hide in these bushes by the sidewalk down by my grandparents' motel. And I'd pitch little bitty gravel pebbles out. When people would walk by, I'd hit them on the leg, and they'd turn around and look like, who did that? Hairy kids do that too, and I've seen some hairy adults do that too. But for me and the life that I've lived, because I had my grandmother, I think she was my key to help me understand about them. I have a picture of my grandmother. I wished I'd have thought to send that to Terry. It's in 1949 or 1950. She is demonstrating the Bigfoot walk. Long before most people talked about Bigfoot, in 49 and 50, long before Jerry Crews or Patterson Gimlin, she was out demonstrating the Bigfoot walk. And she had that stride out in her arms, and the look on her face was pure joy. Is there a magic aspect to this? Well, what's magic? You know, that's what I'd say. What's magic? Life's magic. Everything's in life is magic. How do those things happen? Science knows how some things do. Science doesn't know how some things are. I don't need science to prove anything to me, but I don't have a problem with science proving stuff either. I do have a problem with we got to have a body theory, because where I go to on that is, which one do you take? Do you take a dad? Do you take a mom? Do you take a kid? And what's that going to tell us? Yeah, they're out there and they eat this and they do that and, you know, all this other stuff. Is it going to tell you who they are? No, not really. I mean, you can do an autopsy on me and you're going to know a lot about me, but you're not going to know the Arla that's standing up here talking by that. You're not going to know the Arla that you talk to on the street. There's enough soft evidence out there for them to be proven. That's what Ron Moorhead said. In a court of law, there is enough soft evidence out there to prove them. Now, I don't care anything about proving them. I don't think we'll ever prove them, because I don't think we're in control of that. I think they are. From everything I know, everything I've witnessed through the years, they are. They're a people. They're a primal people, a people from the beginning. They are flesh and blood, and yes, they're more. We are flesh and blood, and yes, we're more. Like I said, I have seen more things in my lifetime by tribal elders done that most people would say, you can't do that. That can't be done. Well, it was done. How was it done? I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And I witnessed it happening. And no, it wasn't a sleight of hand or a magic curtain or anything else. It was actually something that happened. So my life with the hairy people's been a pretty good one. And you know, I've had to put up with a lot of people being upset with me because I talk like I do talk. You know, I didn't get in big with a paranormal side to you. I could have. But I know them as flesh and blood, too. I know them on a personal level of interacting with them. They know our culture. I've got 2 little short stories on them letting me know they understood our culture. And then we're going to dismiss you guys and let you know about the walk and stuff. The first thing that they did with culture to let me know, does anybody know what the 4 directions are? Like in 4 directions, symbols that a lot of indigenous people use, and those 4 directions go for the north, the east, the south, and the west. And each one of those directions has a meaning. And there was a time when I came into this, I had people telling me they were going to bash my face in if I didn't shut up. I had people trying to run me, tell me they were going to put me in jail. They were going to do all kinds of things if I didn't shut up. Well, I'm still here talking. I haven't shut up, and I don't intend to shut up. All I'm doing is sharing with you my experiences, and hopefully in doing that, maybe it'll help you if you have something happen or a friend has something happen. So anyway, I have 4 direction rocks everywhere. I might pick up some rocks walking down anywhere and put them in the 4 directions and just honor that. So I had a special place where I would always go and pray and talk, and I drum a lot, and I sing, and I talk out loud, and I pray out loud. And that at that particular time when all that was happening, I needed my grandmother. I was like, I don't know how to handle this. All these people are coming at me, and they're literally telling me they're going to harm me. They're going to find me. They're going to do all these things to me. Now, I'm not afraid of them at all. And I don't think they can do what they say they're going to do, even though some of them gave it a really good try. But I need my granny. I need to talk to her. We didn't talk about this stuff happening. I don't know what to do. So that morning, I was walking down to my prayer place to pray, and one of my 4 direction stones that I had laid, one of the stones had been moved. And it was the north stone. And the north stone was moved into the center. Now, on that wheel, I am the center. We are the center. The north is our ancestors, our family that's gone on. What they were showing me was my grandmother in the north. My ancestor was with me. She was still with me. Even though she wasn't physically with me, everything she taught me was still with me. And that made me feel so good that they would show that to me. It said to me, they understand how I think. They understand things I do. The next thing they did in that prayer place, and they did this, it was actually in a September, and I'd gone down and I noticed that there was a structure there. And there were 4 saplings, and they were like 1 here, 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 and here. And they took those saplings, they took 2 of the saplings, and they built an X and wove it together and brought it up. So it's this beautiful X with these live trees. They weren't probably over that big, so it wasn't like the hardest thing to weave. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my gosh, how beautiful. And it's there in the east where I start my morning, because the east is a direction of morning for me. I'm going to get to see that every morning when I come down here to say my prayers or drum or whatever. And I didn't think anything about it. Well, as it got close to the spring equinox the next year, I would go down every morning and I was like, boy, that sun's moving towards that. Nah, the sun's not going to shine through that. Now, do you guys know about all of the standing stones and all the different things where the sun shines through and it's that only on that particular day? Well, this was going to be the spring equinox. So I'm watching that sun inch closer to that. And I'm like, nah. But yeah, 7 days before the equinox, I did special ceremony and prayers every morning. I watched that sun every morning. It was so close to that. Got up on the equinox morning before light, walked down there, and I'm like, I wonder, will it? And I'm still at that point like, nah, probably not. I'm just wishful thinking. Well, I get down there and I sit down and I'm saying my prayers and stuff, and I look, and that sun shining through that X. That said to me, they know culture. They know ancient culture. Now, why would they show me all of these things? Why would they do that? I know about that paranormal side. I know it very well. I know about the Star Nation people. I've been taught about them too. I know about all these that people call cryptids. I know a lot of them. I grew up in that. So I don't have a problem when somebody says, oh, did you see this, whatever this was? No, I don't know everything that's here. I mean, I'm pretty open to see pretty much what's out there. And I'm sure there's a lot I've never seen. But they did that because I was going to be talking to people. And people needed to know that there are people, they understand this. And yes, they have that other side. We do too. We've just forgotten it. We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten what the Creator infused in us so very long ago, whomever you see as the Creator. And that's something I don't get into either with people, is who your Creator is. That's a personal thing to me. That's very, very personal. So they showed me culture. They showed me their flesh and blood lives. And I got to be a part of that. They are still showing me their flesh and blood lives. And I have Matthew now, who we've been together a little over a year. Well, Matthew's very open. He never really had anyone around him to talk about them like I talk about them. So now they're doing so many things for him, in-your-face things. The other day, I've been working outside making things because it's so dusty and everything. I had things setting on a little container. I had my Dremel tools on it and some other stuff. And it was right there where I could lay my Dremel tool down and work on what I was working on. Well, I left my Dremel tools out, and I had a ruler there. And I got up and went in the house. Well, in a little while, here come Matthew, and he said, what are your Dremel tools doing out there on the ground? I said, I don't know. Why would my Dremel tools be on the ground? So I went outside. I looked. The container had been moved way away, probably 3 feet from where I'd had it. My Dremel tools were laying there on the ground and my ruler. And what was sitting there on that container? A rock and a leaf. If anyone knows anything about me, the two things I love in this world are rocks and leaves. And through the years, they've left me many in very different ways. So there was a hairy kid out there who decided they would pick this up and move it. And oops, I spilt everything. It'll be funny if I just move it, because she's going to come out here and work and whatever, and he's going to come. And so he was the first one to see it. So he walks back out there and he looks at that rock and that leaf, he looks at me and he just shakes his head. And he knows. So he's on a journey that I'm not doing anything about. They're doing it. I'm staying out of it. This is his deal. I'm there to try to help if he needs my help. There again, there's that physical interaction. A tangible thing is moved. And then something's left that's very, very much something I love. Like, oops. So here's my peace offering. I'll give you a leaf and a really pretty chert rock. This is who I know. If I could wish anything for any of you who have an interest in this, I would wish that you would find a respect inside yourself and that you would approach this whole thing with that respect and with excitement, because we humans are such easily pleased. I mean, they do a glyph and we go, oh my God, look what I got. Or a structure, we find a beautiful structure and we're like, oh my God, look at this structure. Or we even get a whoop or a knock or whatever. We're just so easily pleased by them. And they actually like that. They like to see us have fun. So go to the woods, have some fun, and see what happens. You never know.